Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to make the undisputed, the definitive Marvel tier list, which will, rank all of the MCU movies and TV shows. Definitively, this is the correct list. Any other opinion is wrong. So why don't we start off? I'm going to go in chronological order, and I'm just going to, order them in where I think they're the best. And I know I said that this is the definitive right version, and everyone else is wrong. But again, this is actually only my opinion, which is a very great opinion. But no one's perfect. So let's start off. 2008's Iron Man. I really enjoy Iron Man. I think it's a great start. It's a great movie on its own. I'm going to put it B tier because it's got great action. The Iron Man suit looks awesome, but it's kind of a very simple story. The villain's very forgettable. And honestly, the high points are at the beginning of the movie when he kind of escapes from that, little prison. And great movie. B tier, though, overall. Now I'm going to go with Incredible Hulk. I'm going to be a little harsh. I'm going to put this in D tier. It doesn't even feel like it's part of the MCU. It's not like a bad movie. There's pretty good action, but it's just very forgettable. They switched the actor, obviously, to Mark Ruffalo. And so it just really feels like an outlier, kind of, as far as the MCU is concerned. Now I'm going to go with Iron Man 2. And I think this is a little worse than Iron Man. So I'm going to put it in C tier. It's not a bad movie, but I don't like the suit as much. Honestly, the triangle for his chest, the arc reactor, throws me off a lot more than you would think. The villain Whiplash, again, is not very interesting. It's got the introduction of Black Widow, but she's sort of, I don't know, it's just no one's as interesting as they could be. The villain doesn't feel like a huge threat to Iron Man. And I just don't think it's the best MCU movie. Back to back, I'm going to put Thor, and I'm going to say Thor is a little bit better than Iron Man 2. But it's not my favorite movie. They just didn't start off so strong. Besides Iron Man, Thor is not the Thor we know now. He's more old Englishy. I know he's a Norse god, but he speaks with an English accent. He's very formal and he's not very funny. The movie's pretty. It looks very like bland. It's not over the top action either. Like there's pretty good action. It's pretty entertaining, but I feel like it's nothing like the MCU now, and it's just not as interesting. So next up is Captain America, the First Avenger. This one is another good movie. I'd say maybe a little bit. I kind of like it better than Iron Man. I think people will get mad at me for this, but I thought this was one of the strongest entries to start off the Marvel Cinematic Universe, like Phase 1. It's got like a pretty interesting villain. Captain America's got a great origin story. It sets up a lot of plot threads that are continued in later installments. And I just thought it was a solid movie. It stands on its own, to be honest, so it's pretty good. And that's what I think, sets out these original movies is these two stand on their own a lot more than these ones do. And so obviously the culmination of all this Phase 1 was Avengers, which you got to put in A tier. I mean, just like the hype for Avengers when it first came out, everyone was so psyched. It's like, oh, dude, the Hulk is smashing, Iron Man's crushing, Thor is fighting Loki. It all comes together in a very satisfying way. And that's why I think Avengers is the first A tier movie. A for Avengers, right? Isn't that right? Yes, I'm right. Moving on, I think Iron Man 3 is my least favorite Iron Man movie. Again, it's not bad. Like, I know I'm putting it in C tier, but to me, C's kind of like average. Like, I can enjoy it. You know what I mean? So it's just, again, the Iron Man villains have just not been great. And this, like, Mandarin fake out, the guy's just a weirdo. They got weird, undefined, like, melting powers. It's interesting to see Iron Man sort of out of the suit. But at the end of the day, you go into an Iron Man movie, you want to see Iron Man, right? You want to see him doing Iron Man stuff. And I just felt this was an unsatisfying sort of third film. But again, not bad. Thor: The Dark World. This is widely considered the worst MCU movie, but it's not. It's just forgettable, right? And if you're asking me which one would you rather watch right now, Thor: The Dark World or The Incredible Hulk, I think I'd rather watch Thor: The Dark World a little bit more. It's pretty uninteresting. The villain's forgettable. And I don't even really remember what happens, but it feels a little more whimsical, more otherworldly, a little more interesting than The Incredible Hulk. So that's why I'm going to put it in D tier over the Hulk. But it's just not that interesting as of today. It's almost like this might, if it didn't exist, you wouldn't really care. It develops the relationship between Thor and Loki a little bit, which I think is good for the audience. But other than that, all right, now we get, when this came out, I thought this was a banger movie. I'm gonna put Captain America: The Winter Soldier right behind Avengers. This is a great, like, again, this film stands on its own. It's just interesting by itself. It's a cool, like, sort of spy thriller action movie. I feel like almost like a superhero James Bond, and like a Rogue Nation sort of deal. It's just I like it a lot. It's got great action. It's got a pretty compelling story. The villains, the Winter Soldier's the villain pretty much, and it's just a notable characters facing off and brings stuff together, ties in past things. It's just I like it a lot. So that's why it gets an A tier. Next up is, I think, my favorite Marvel movie, which is Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm going to put it in S tier. This has it's got great music, it's got great action, it's got great characters, it's got a nice, fun story. It's got an ending that's, different than, we team up and we fight the big guy at the end. They solve the final conflict in an interesting way. Dance battle. And I like that. It's goofy, but it's fun and it fits the tone of the movie. I just think this is probably the best Marvel movie. We'll see where I place other things as we go along. All right, now for Avengers: Age of Ultron. This to me could land in C, but I'm going to give it a B just for the kind of, ensemble team nature of it, to get all the characters together, and there's a lot of good action in it. It just doesn't have the soul of the first Avengers. It's kind of, it lacks that feeling of like, this is the culmination of everything. It's sort of like, here's just another villain for the Avengers to fight. And the Ultron's a little more interesting than the previous villains in these films, so that's probably why I'm going to put it in B tier. But overall, I think it's underwhelming coming off of how cool and fun the first Avengers was. Now we have an interesting one, Ant-Man. This one, I'm so conflicted on. I think it's funny, but I don't want to watch it again. I'll put it in B because it's funny and it's got cool shrinky dink action, but it doesn't really live up to the promise of like a heist story. The villain is just it's Ant-Man. It's another version of Ant-Man. He can shrink. And I guess the fighting is pretty visually interesting. So that's why I'll put it in B. It's overall enjoyable, but I didn't find it so compelling. Captain America: Civil War, to me, is almost the third Avengers movie. It's got everyone together and they're just facing off. I actually think this is probably an A tier. It's just an enjoyable movie. Introduction of Spider-Man. Interesting conflict between Captain America and Iron Man. And it's pretty memorable. So there you go. Next up is Doctor Strange. I don't have much to say about this. I think it's a little bit better than Ant-Man. It's just it's got interesting visuals, good action. I don't love the character Doctor Strange, but pretty good movie overall, I think. Moving on to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Again, this is not as good to me as the first Guardians of the Galaxy, but it's still fun ride. I'm going to put it in B tier. I liked it a little better than Avengers: Age of Ultron. It's got a more compelling, villain. I like Ego as the villain. I like to learn about Peter Quill's backstory, but it just didn't have the same heart and feeling of like adventure team that the first one had. So for that reason, I'm going to put it below these two sort of classic, iconic movies. So I say that's a pretty good spot for it. Spider-Man: Homecoming. This one is pretty good. Is it better than I think it's a little worse than Guardians of the Galaxy. This, to me, I enjoy it a lot. It's a good Spider-Man movie, but I just feel my problems mainly come with the over inclusion of Iron Man. It's too much of an Iron Man story. I wish that this MCU Spider-Man would be able to stand on his own without Iron Man. I don't like how he has all the gadgets, but it just doesn't feel very Spider-Man-y. I feel like Spider-Man should be a kid who makes his own stuff and finds his own way, because that's kind of part of the character. But this one, he gets too much help, I think, and that's the main problem. I don't know if there's really all the Spider-Man action I want either. If you rewatch that last fight scene, it's not really that interesting. Vulture kind of just screws himself over and Spider-Man wins. So I don't know. It's not bad though. It's a good movie. I like how Tom Holland portrays Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Pretty good. So here's Thor Ragnarok. I'm going to put this one A tier just because it's very visually interesting. Yeah, good movie. It's finally the Thor we kind of know and love. He's funny. It's got action. It's got color. It's got it all. It's got the Loki dynamic. So I like it. I like seeing Thor push to his limits, and it's a great inclusion to the MCU. Here's Black Panther now. Probably, I think, the most overrated MCU movie. but still, it's pretty good. I mean, it's only overrated because it won an Oscar, like it's got an Oscar nomination, which I think it's just, pretty stock standard. I put it basically right in the middle of all my movies. I like Black Panther as a character, and I like the story that was told here. I just think that it wasn't that overall like great of a movie. Like it's just pretty good. I could give it a 7.5 out of 10. You know what I mean? Or a 7 maybe. All right. So the culmination, the beginning of the culmination, you got to put Infinity War in A tier. I mean, this was just. I'm gonna put it behind the original Avengers. You know what? No, I'm gonna put it ahead. It goes ahead. I just think this is it. This is Thanos is here. We got to get everyone together. I'd rather watch this again than Avengers again, and that's how I'm putting it above it. It's just like, let's go. It's go time. Everyone's at their best. Everyone gets a little nod, and then it sets up the biggest movie of all time, which we'll get to in a minute. Then we have Ant-Man and the Wasp, and I got to tell you, this might be my least favorite Marvel movie. Do I want to put it in F tier? Is it that bad? I don't think so. I don't know if any movie's going to go in F tier. And I'd rather watch this, honestly, than... I'd rather watch this again than Thor: The Dark World. It's just not... It's funny, and that's about all it has going for it. I think the CGI in this movie looks bad. Like, the car chase scenes are all CGI, and you can tell. It's just... I think following Avengers Infinity War didn't help because the stakes feel so low and stupid. I just don't... I'm not a big fan of this one. Next, we have Captain Marvel. I think Captain Marvel I like a little better than Doctor Strange. I thought I wouldn't like this one, but it's a stock standard superhero movie, and I think it's pretty good. Better than I thought, but I don't think Captain Marvel is very interesting of a character, so that's why it's not way up. I'm actually going to do this because I think, yeah, there you go. All right, Avengers Endgame. I'm going to put it right behind Infinity War because I think Infinity War was a better movie overall, but Endgame is just like, for that finale fight scene alone, you have to put it here. I think the first half, it's actually really boring, but, it's necessary setup for bringing back the entire universe. So the second half of the movie really picks it up, and it really, is a very satisfying ending to all of this, which is why it is one of the top movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Next, we have Spider-Man No Way Home. No, sorry. Spider-Man Far From Home. Sorry. This one's I like a little better than Spider-Man, the first one, Homecoming. It's just a little more globetrotting, a little more Spider-Man action. He's using his spider senses. He's pushed to his limits more. Mysterio's a more interesting villain to me. And I like this one. It's a good movie. Next, we have Black Widow. I like Black Widow too. I honestly think Black Widow's probably better than Avengers Age of Ultron, which it's a good little action movie. And it could fit in or outside the MCU and be its own thing, kind of. So I liked it a lot. Pretty good. Shang Chi. I think Shang Chi is also a little better than Black Widow. It's just a good, for that bus scene where he's doing all that, kung fu on the bus, fighting the guy with the sword arm. It's just, that's what I love. I think that's just great action and really enjoyable, fight scenes. I think that it devolves into sort of MCU, like, CGI at the end, but that's kind of interesting too. I just wish it would have been a little more satisfying conclusion with his, the villain, his father, but overall it's not bad. All right, now this one, Eternals, I'm going to put in D. I just thought it was kind of boring. I don't care about the characters. It's long, it's boring, and yeah, it's fine. It's okay. All right, now here at the end, I have all of the TV shows that have come out so far, and I'll quickly rank them too. WandaVision is going to be in probably B tier. I liked it a little better than these movies because it made me care about Vision and Wanda. It's just I don't think it was as good as it could have been, but it's pretty interesting. Falcon and the Winter Soldier I thought was kind of bad. I'm gonna put it at top of C tier. A little cheesy, a little silly. It made me care about Falcon a lot, and I like him as Captain America, so that's why it's not lower. But I just thought the villains were awful. Like, what was the Flag Smashers' plan? No one knows. It's just not compelling. Loki's probably the best of these shows. I'm going to put it just above WandaVision. Again, I think this really needs season 2 to flesh it out, and I think that'll really, upgrade how much I like it in the future. But as of right now, I just think it's pretty standard, pretty interesting, pretty fun show. What If I actually liked a lot. I'm gonna put it right behind Loki just because I think Loki is more like it has more impact on the MCU as a whole, and it's more sort of interesting in the overall story arc than this is. But and lastly, so far I've only seen 3 episodes of Hawkeye, but I really like it a lot. I think I love the holiday vibe. It makes you care about Hawkeye. And it's just got the most interesting story to tell, I think, of all these shows. So I'm going to put it actually above Loki, which I know is probably a controversial pick.
So after recording and editing this video, I went out and saw Spider-Man No Way Home. And I'm sure you're wondering where I think it lies on this list. Well, I'll tell you what, baby. S tier, baby. S for Spider-Man. Put it in S tier. It's got the Green Goblin. It's got other things. I won't spoil it. S for spoilers. S for no spoilers. Put it in S tier. All right, that's the tier list. Look at it. I'm an idiot. I don't know anything about movies. This is just what I like. Who knows? Whatever. See ya.